Friends, today's NRI Samai program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamai@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
Friends, welcome to NRI Samay. This is Sri Hari, your host for today's show. Friends, we are continuing our Know Your Neighbor Pakistan series. Today is the fourth episode in the series. We will be talking with Dr. Aamir Butt. He was born and brought up in Pakistan. Now currently he is in London for past some years. He is a doctor, but he is also an analyst of Pakistan affairs. And we'll be talking about the democracy, the religion, the various factors that influence the Pakistan public policy and how people live there. But before that, I'm also adding some candid conversation between me and Aamir at the beginning of the interview, because I was explaining Aamir the background of this series, why we are doing this. I think it's helpful for our listeners to understand about Know Your Neighbor Pakistan series. It's a candid conversation, so it will be a little bit different than our regular interviews. Then it's about like 3 or 4 minutes. Then it follows the regular interview with Dr. Aamir Butt. So please stay tuned. Thank you. So I'll give you some background. You probably got a little bit from our chat, but so this is for a radio channel. It's called NRI Samay. Mainly we do interviews with, most of the interviews are with some social workers or politicians in India. We want to talk about important things which are not discussed in the mainstream. We go to the grassroots level and then spread the message, positive message. And we also do interviews in US. We want to show Indians how things are done here. They pick up ideas. Then recently we started this new initiative. It's called Know Your Neighbor Pakistan. Then we plan to do Know Your Neighbor Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and other countries. So the idea is, Pakistan is probably most important because there's always a possibility of a war between India and Pakistan. So people should know more about Pakistan and real people of Pakistan, not politicians or news anchors and military and stuff like that, but real people, what is actually happening in Pakistan. Because the only time we hear news about Pakistan is whenever there is a cross-border fighting, or when there is a terrorist attack or something. Only when negative happens we hear about it. There might be other stuff there, but we don't know anything about Pakistan. The only thing we know is whenever there is a fighting, right? So the idea is for people to know beyond borders what happens, what are the real issues, how do people respond to those issues, what is actually happening in the political space, in the civic space. So we are doing a 10 series. This is a 10 interview series. Then we are talking with different people. First one we did with Rahimullah Yousafzai, a journalist. Then we did one with a PhD scholar. He is actually in Illinois, in Chicago.
Yeah.
Irfan Ashraf, Said Irfan Ashraf. And 2 days back we did an interview with Faizullah Zan. He is also a professor in University of Peshawar. So different things, every time we are touching on different things, but mostly like political or religion, what is most important to Pakistan, it's not so much about the relationship between India and Pakistan, but it's mostly about Pakistan itself.
Yeah, and you're based in US, you said?
I'm sorry?
You're based in the United States.
Yeah, I am in Los Angeles, you're right.
So where do you transmit it? In India? Do people listen to it in India?
Yeah, this is on web, so it's a web radio. So
All right.
yeah, online radio. Anybody can listen to this show.
All right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Fine. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you visited my page, you see I do write about Pakistan a bit, what I think about it. I mean, I don't know, a couple of days ago I wrote about the state of democracy in Pakistan.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, I got interested after seeing that. I thought it could be, because last time on our chat we were thinking about, I think, religious effect on Pakistan, but we kind of touched on the topic when I talked to Faisal Azan. We discussed about what is the religious effect on the syllabus. Because if you see Wasif Altaf, I don't know if you follow him on...
Yeah. He's a friend of mine. I know him personally, actually.
Oh, really? Wasim Altaf, yeah. So he also put some picture saying this is how the textbook in Pakistan is, right? I think it's a first grade textbook. Then he said how much religion has an effect on it. He says what I believe, then, about some God and, all that stuff. So So we kind of touch based on that topic. But I think democracy, when I think of democracy in Pakistan, I'm thinking about military, then there is obviously the parliament, military, and then all the different powerhouses, like there is religious extremism, then there is militants who has effect on the democracy. So this is what I'm thinking. You think we should drive the conversation there?
Yeah. I mean, what I tried to show was that there's a misconception, which I don't think is only Pakistanis have. I think many people have, that democracy is just simply holding fair elections, and if you do that, it's democracy. But I don't know. It's a bit more than that. Elections, and there's more things involved in it. And in Pakistan, none of those things exist, basically.
Yeah.
So holding elections mean nothing. Even if they're fair, it will lead to nowhere.
Yeah. So today we would like to talk about democracy in Pakistan, what it means right now, and what it should mean, and what are the different powerhouses which make up the country's political space. So if you could. But before we start off, maybe please give a brief introduction about yourselves and how you are interested in these areas.
Well, basically, I'm a doctor by profession, and I'm qualified in medicine in 1985. And my day job is basically working in the hospital, but outside my working hours, I'm very much always been interested in history and politics, and because I'm from Pakistan, so the history of Pakistan and what has happened since Pakistan was made has been of great interest to me. Basically, I try to read, and then I try to analyze things and give my own view, which may not be right, but I try to give a rational reason to why I think like that. So I think that's basically it.
Excellent. And now you are practicing medicine in London, right? And
no, I'm in United Kingdom. I'm not in London. I'm about 150 miles northeast of London, so not proper London, in the United Kingdom. Yeah.
I see. And when did you move out of Pakistan?
1992.
I see. Since 1992, you have been in UK.
Yeah, that's right. Excellent.
And so, talking about the democracy, can you give us an overview of our background of how things are in Pakistan, more in a political space?
Well, just again, the history of Pakistan. What happened when Pakistan came into being? It was created by a political party called the Muslim League. However, this party was a real political party. I mean, they never had any. At one stage, they didn't have even local offices. They were running elections without any local workers. So basically, they made Pakistan because they had an idea to sell, which was Muslims. So that idea was sold, and people bought it, and the country was created. But once it came into being, the party had no manifesto as to what they want to do next. And on top of that, majority of their leaders were from areas which had area. So they basically had no constituencies. So they were politicians, but without any constituents, which is probably unheard of in politics. So to cover what they did was that they started going towards Islam. So instead of, because they had no political background in areas where they were leaders, they started promoting Islam and using that as a way of enticing people. So that's where it all started to go wrong. And then it has just kept on going that path. And the result was that the Islamists became stronger and stronger. They're in a position where they dictate everything. And then we have the military, came into power very early in 57, and combined with the Islamists, they basically are running the, and all the democracy which is thought to be in Pakistan is not there. It is just a mostly sham democracy that's running there.
I see. And I think in India, it's the role of military is very clear, at least to me, to most Indians. It falls definitely under the government, but in Pakistan, often we hear about it's almost like an equal power, right? Or is it perceived that way, or how much of control does Pakistan government has on the military? Maybe that's my question.
Well, literally, if you look at some of the incidents that happened, for example, when Musharraf came to power, the minister had dismissed the chief of staff, and he and came to power. That shows that the civilian government literally has no powers. They cannot, like in any other place, if you see US, I don't know about India, if the president or prime minister decides that the chief of staff has to retire, they just leave. But here in Pakistan, when Nawaz Musharraf just ousted him and became president himself. So literally, the few things army completely keeps in their hands now. One is foreign policy. They literally run it. Whatever they want to do, especially regarding Afghanistan and the local situation. Kashmir, they tell the civilian government, you have nothing to do with it. We are running it. It's our decisions. In the same way, they of course are completely in charge of the defense. So the defense funds, they get whichever they want, and you can't stop them. You can't audit them. There is no way that you can tell how much money has been spent on what, because army doesn't let you know that. So basically, if you take those things out, the civil government hardly has anything left in their hands.
Is this by the design? Is it by the constitution, or is it something that's just developed?
Well, it's not written in the constitution, but it's how it is being practiced, because of the army has got such a huge role that civilian governments know that if they anger them, they're going to stage a coup. So obviously you will be out. So they have to either toe the line, or they face that the army will just... I mean, recently when you saw Imran Khan and all that was happening, all that we're saying is that if army would decide that Nawaz Sharif was to leave, Nawaz Sharif will leave. Whereas you see that the army general is being asked, can you make both of them? Who is an army general, chief of staff in political things? But that's how Pakistan is being run at the moment.
So in a hypothetical situation, if army general decides, I want to, go war with India, so could they go without the consultation of the president or the prime minister?
Well, if you look at Pakistan history, we have fought how many wars? 3 or 4 wars, right?
Yeah.
I think in none of those wars, the civilian government made a decision to go to war.
Wow.
The 48... Hello?
Wow, I didn't know about that.
Well, let's see. The first war India-Pakistan was the 47-48 war, right?
Yeah.
Pakistan had just been made. There was a civilian government in power. However, who shifted the the tribals from the tribal area and brought them to the border, and they went into Kashmir, along with officers of Pakistan Army? Nobody knows. It's not officially, I don't think even Jinnah knew what was happening. So once that insurgency started, India reacted by putting in troops and a war started. So that was the first war. 65 war, army was in power. Ayub was the ruler, army. He started the operation in Kashmir again. That started well before September. So again, army made the decision to go to war. And same in 71. Army was in power, general. So each time we went to war, there has been no civilian government. So you can say technically that if there is a civilian government, probably there will never be an India-Pakistan war.
Friends, NRI Samay is a non-profit independent alternate media from Los Angeles, USA, which brings positive stories from grassroots activists from all corners of India and across the world. NRI Samay does not rely on corporate funding and our shows are commercial free. We only rely on your donations. Corporate funded media is driven by the TRP rating and profits are blurring the distinction between news and entertainment. Why do our news channels talk so much about cricket, movies, accidents, popular figures' personal lives, babies of heroines, gossips, etc., while they should be covering the struggles of people, inequality in our society, rural issues, and border security issues? Why did our media raise some corruption crusaders to the sky on one day and shut them off completely when graft charges were raised on those corporate sponsors? Media relies so much on the corporate funding and government blessings that they cannot report independently. NRI Samay is different. We don't accept funds from any corporations and hence our shows are commercial free. We completely rely on donations from you. Please consider donating to NRI Samay and please go to nrisamay.com and donate generously. This is the only way together that we can continue NRI Samay. All donations are kept transparent on nrisamay.com. And if you have any questions, please write to nrisamay@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's a good. I think that's the crux of what we are discussing. So there is a democracy, or a version of it. So what does it mean by how much of a civilian participation is there, or what is lacking? To call it complete democracy in Pakistan.
What democracy needs besides elections is political institutions. It needs a constitution which is conducive to developing democracy, and it needs a culture among people of democracy. Pakistan lacks all of them. The political institutions never developed. Political parties, for example, they are either regional based or People's Party, which probably has a bit of political institutions, but now it's also been sidelined because of the corruption and all that. But other than that, we don't have any way where a politician starts at a local level, becomes somebody in the local council, then goes on to become something else and moves upwards. We have nothing like that. So there's no political institution that exists in Pakistan. A constitution does not help develop politics or democracy either. It is restricted. It is basically, it says Islam will be the religion. So obviously all non-Muslims are basically second-class citizens. It would say that only a Muslim can become Prime Minister, President, and Chief of Staff. So what kind of thing you can develop when you are restricting certain religions to be holding power? And same among people, because of all that, they don't understand what real democracy is. They keep on saying, well, it has failed in Pakistan. What have they given us? Army is better. So all these things are in Pakistan which won't let real democracy at the moment function there or develop there.
Okay, I think that's very important. So you are saying for a religious country, religious country and democracy, they don't go hand in hand. There cannot be true democracy for a religious country. Is that what you're saying?
That is my idea. Some might disagree, and in fact, sometimes what I've discussed with my Indian friends, they disagree with it, because my thinking is that for true democracy, the country's governance has to be secular. And I've talked to Indian friends who disagree, and they say that the secular Gandhi government has given us nothing, and that is wrong, and it shouldn't be secular. But my thinking is very clear that if you want to develop true democracy, the governance of the country, the constitution has to be totally secular.
Excellent. And so the other powerhouse or maybe large influence on democracy is the terrorist, extremists or militants, whatever we want to call. After the Peshawar school massacre, I think there's more exposure on the relationship between the military and these militants, right? Has something gone wrong? They were targeting the kids of the military. What was the relationship between the militants and the military?
Well, that's again a pretty unfortunate situation. I think proxy wars in both sides are started by some of the agencies. India is not innocent totally in either. They also have been doing insurgency or helping insurgencies in Pakistan. Pakistan is doing it definitely. Kashmir is the main thing. Pakistan Army has been promoting insurgencies in Kashmir for ages. And because Pakistan has always felt that militarily they can't confront India because India is much bigger, they rely on creating these militant groups. And they use Islam or religion as a jihadi concept so that people would be willing to kill themselves or get killed in the process. What happens is they create a group, they support it, and they use it. But after some time, that group becomes too big for them even. That group starts thinking their own thinking that, oh yes, why don't we establish the Islamic rule over the world? So when that happens, they start targeting the army itself because the army has got links to America. So when this Islamic group they have created themselves becomes autonomous, they even start fighting with the army. Then army kills them. And then they create another group. After a while, the same cycle repeats. So they keep on doing that. So at the moment, this group of this chap, what's his name? I'm forgetting, who's also being asked by India to give up.
Yeah.
You might remember.
The Bombay attacks.
Yeah. The leader of that group, Hakim Saeed. Yeah, Saeed. This chap has got a group. I was Lahore in November, and accidentally I got caught up in his jalsa. And can you believe it's so huge? People had come from Karachi, and they had been given trains by government to transport them to this jalsa, where all they were talking about was America is enemy, India is our enemy, and all that. So and it's full support of army. Now they are the blue-eyed boy. After a while, he will turn against them and they will start killing them and they will create another group. So that's what they've been doing for the ages.
Yes, yeah, that's pretty unfortunate. And what about in the current situation, especially after the school massacre, what do people think about these groups, the Taliban and the other?
People now, everyone is against them. But they are against Taliban. They're not against the ideology which runs these Taliban groups. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So everyone would say Taliban should be killed because they kill children. Yeah. But they won't say the Taliban should be killed because their ideology is wrong. The whole ideology which runs from a perceived superiority of Islam and Islam should have the premier position in the world. These things, many people in Pakistan believe in that. They think that if we become true Muslims, we will get our empire back. So those thoughts are what create all these groups.
Yeah. So if not Taliban, something else will come up as long as this ideology is there.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Yeah. And what about maybe the progressive voices, or is there any progressive political party that is trying to create space? Or is there any civil movements that are happening which are in the right direction for Pakistan?
Well, there are people, but the problem is that they're politically not of any importance. Problem is that in Pakistan politics, if you do not use religion now in one form or the other, nobody will vote, nobody will give you any importance to take you seriously. And if you try to put up rational arguments about why there should be secular type of government, people will brand you atheist, and even you might be in danger of getting killed or something. So I don't think at the moment the atmosphere in Pakistan is in any way that any real progressive movement can do anything.
I see. And so what maybe I'm trying to see if there's any positives that we can look forward to, maybe if not now, maybe in 5 years or 10 years. Um, is there anything else going on in Pakistan that's interesting?
Well, to me, obviously, I can't talk about many people. There are people who probably are getting sick of all this, and they are looking through it and saying that probably the ideological basis of religious extremism needs to be tackled. The problem is, as I said, at the moment, they cannot speak out because of the violence that can be done. But I think in time, if the number of these people reaches a level where they cannot be easily picked off by the violent extremists, then you might see the change happening. When, to be honest, I have no idea.
Yeah. And some other interesting developments recently. So Pakistan siding with Saudi, in the conflict of Yemen. What do you think of that?
Well, Pakistan army has always sided with Saudis and governments as well. So I think that's nothing new. The proxy war that's been going on between Shia Sunnis has been going on for ages. Iran originally started it after the 79 revolution. The effect of that was that the Wahhabis from Saudi responded, but because they have a lot more money and resources now, they are dominant. They also got more men. So Iranian and Shia groups are on back foot, but they are still fighting. These Houthis are supported by Iran and they're Shias, and all the Sunnis are united against them now.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned earlier, you said India also promoting the proxy wars. Can you give a little bit more information on what areas or what regions? Maybe is it on the east, on the west side?
I think India is mainly involved in Balochistan insurgency.
It's mainly Balochistan, and I think even the relationships with Afghanistan kind of makes Pakistan a little uncomfortable, right?
Well, obviously, to me, that is something Pakistan has to accept. The reason being that when Northern Alliance had been pushed to the extreme northern limit of Afghanistan and was facing to be totally destroyed, India was helped them against the Taliban. So now that Northern Alliance had come to power after the 9/11 events, it was obvious that India will be inclined to take them as Afghanistan government will be inclined to look at India as a friend. So in that way, I think that's more likely the friendship. How much India is interfering in the Pakhtunkhwa Khyber area, I'm not sure, but I'm sure Balochistan, definitely Indian agencies are involved.
I see. The talks between India and Pakistan, they were on hold for more than 6 months, and now they are again talking about maybe starting the conversation at the highest levels. Do you think, can you see anything good coming out of it? Is this the right direction, or any preconditions these countries should meet? Because India always talks about the Mumbai attacks and the proper trail of it, and Pakistan has their own issues.
Well, obviously it's always good to talk, but unfortunately I think recently it's not only Pakistan, India also, the new government looks to be not that, or I must say there might be a bit more hardline stance to take in direction of Pakistan. So when both sides are a bit more hardline, then possibilities of a compromise become less. But obviously, if the talks continue, then it's possible that some good should come out of it. The only fear is that the people who benefit from a state of war between the two countries, they might like to sabotage.
Yeah, and also I think media plays a big role, because even on India, there was a national day, right, for Pakistan recently, last 1 week or so.
Yeah, 23rd of March is the Pakistan Day.
Pakistan Day. So there was a lot of talk about some Indians, especially from Kashmir, going and participating in these celebrations. Then there was one news channel especially saying, they have a tag, party with enemy. I'm like, there's no war now, so why are you saying it's the enemy, right? There's no enemies now.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly my point, that both countries, or some elements in both countries, look each other as enemy or permanent enemy.
Yeah, it almost like their survival depends on having this conflict, or a war kind of a situation. Yeah, I think that's how they draw their audience and their interest. So very unfortunate, but I think media plays a huge role in democracy. Okay, excellent. Thanks for your time. Thanks for running this through this important topic, the democracy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.